So now that all your parts and pieces are cut as well as beveled, so that 45-degree angle, we now need to start connecting them together. But before we do, make sure that these have been dried a bit. They should be leather hard. So they're still a little soft enough that you can blend the clay, but if I hold it up, it should be able to support itself and not fall over. So this is good. So it's a little bit stiffer. If it wiggles or wobbles a little bit, that's still good too. But if it's completely folding over and it's just floppy, then it's not gonna work for this because the bottle needs to be pretty stiff. So I've went ahead and already scored all of the edges for all the pieces, so all the sides, including the front and the back. And I've connected two of them for now. I did the left side and the bottom because I'm gonna be doing a vertical bottle here. And there's a specific way that you're going to want to connect these together as well so that you can make sure that they're connected properly, especially when you get to the last part, and you'll see what I mean by that. I also kept all of the pieces that I cut when I beveled them that came off because I'm gonna use these to help combine them back together now when the two sides meet. So it's scored and it's scored and beveled. I'm now going to join the right side. Doesn't matter whether you do the right or the left first, just you wanna do the sides and the bottom. The top of it you wanna get very, very last. So score, slip each of those sides that are gonna meet. So now because they were at 45-degree angles, once they get put together, now you can see that they are joining perfectly to make that corner. That's what we're looking for. So I'm gonna put that and line them up. This to the middle of the camera. And it's not fully together yet. We still need to blend them. So using a modeling tool will help out with that. So get inside and blend, smear them together a little bit. There you go, that's a better angle. So right on that seam. Now, because we took two corners and we put those together, this is creating a joint. And inside that joint, you wanna make sure that it's going to stick together permanently. So we're gonna have to coil in those joints. So we'll put one here. So now I'm scoring the joint. Don't forget the one that goes up the side as well. I should also be smearing those two together. Then I'll go back and score. Now, the pieces that I kept from after I cut them off when I beveled are gonna come into play because I'm gonna put those right inside. So I've already done this one here and I've done this one. Now I need to do these two joints that were created. So I'm going to wet them a little bit, score them, and then add some slip. And they work out pretty well too because they kind of have a corner already. So it's gonna fit right into the corner itself when it gets blended in. So it's a nice angle already for what we need to do. Add some slip. And then start putting it down in the corner. Do the same on the side. And make sure you get it all the way to the end. So you might need to do several pieces. You know, these has kind of been sitting for a few days, so it's kind of been breaking a little bit. But it's fine, we're just using it to join the pieces together. If you kind of do it on the same day, you know, these are a little bit more together, but it's fine. They're just getting blended anyways. So make sure you're supporting the opposite side and you want to blend these together. So go back to your modeling tool and smear them. So you're basically trying to make the coil of the clay we just stuck in there go away and be invisible. So blend it down into this side of the bottle and then blend it up into the edge of the bottle for the other side. It's gonna look funky at first. And then so go back with a paintbrush or a finger and some water. Support the opposite side until it's smooth. So you won't see that it was ever there. And now I'm doing the top, the one that goes up here. Same thing. And a finger will help just really get rid of any dents that might have been created. Okay, that's good. So at this point, you want to make sure that all the seams are nice and clean and the inside is as clean and smooth as possible. Because next we're going to be putting on the top, or I'm sorry, not the top. We're going to be putting the front on. So the front's going to be going on here. And so once we do that, it's going to be much harder to get inside and blend and add all those coils into the corners. So this one's going to go on very, very last. So clean this up as much as possible. And to make it easier to get inside, because we also have to add our coils here, here, and here, because it's going to create 3 more joints. So right now, instead of making it more challenging for me later, I am going to add those coils there. So I might not even need to cut some just out for the length, just to make it easier. So I'm gonna add it here and like stick it there. So score it. And slip. And I'm not placing it on the bevel itself. It's more on the side. So you can still see here, I've got my bevel with the score marks. So this is just right next to it. Do the same on the bottom. And then we'll need one more on the other side. There you go, that's a perfect size. So it's just below, not on it. Okay, so now that they are pre-placed, I can now put the other front or back, whatever this is gonna be, score and slip that on. add your slip here as well. Can be a little extra heavy-handed with it. And again, this should not be floppy right now. It's barely even bending. That's good. It needs to be firm, but still soft enough to blend. So now these are already gonna be in place when I lay this down, and I'm not struggling when I'm trying to blend those parts and pieces together. So I'm gonna push it down a bit, trying to get those corners. Don't push it too hard, and you're not focusing on the center. I'm focusing on the outer edge. If I push it down on the center, it's gonna cave in and get squished. So now that this is a smaller opening and my coils are in place, it's so much easier for me to then now just start blending them together. So I'm going to just use my modeling tool here and just start blending it together, pushing it down into the seam, or into the joint, I should be saying. Do it all the way around, and make sure you're connecting that coil to both sides that it's trying to connect to. So like this one, it's going onto the front, and then it's going also to the side. It's going to be messy, it's fine. Just go back with the paintbrush later. So we're really trying to really force it into those corners and get nice, strong joints. Always support the wall you're pushing against. Might need a little spritz or two. Just be careful you're not creating puddles of water on the inside. If it pools, then your clay will absorb it. It's gonna get too soft. It could even cause it to crack. So it's just enough to moisten and soften that joint. Okay, and then go back with your paintbrush. And it got messier. We already cleaned it, but now we gotta go back. Paintbrush. Especially if you do decide to use this for actually putting a liquid in here that you want to eat or drink out of, it's gonna help keep it a lot cleaner. And there won't be any areas for bacteria to get stuck and want to grow on the inside. If your sides here, the edges of your bottle are a little bit deeper, because mine was only 3 boxes of the grid, you might have a little bit easier of a time, but 3 would be like the smallest you would go in order for it to be stable and have enough depth. Okay, and you might see this maybe looks a little bit like a trapezoid at this point. So this one's a little bit shorter, this side is a little bit longer. That can easily be fixed, and that's happening depending on how far you were actually cutting from the edge. So if this was the edge and you went in more than 1/4 of an inch, you went too far on one of them, it could adjust the size of it. But at this point, this is now good. You'll still see the seams here on the outer edge aren't really fully joined. So now we're just gonna be working on the box itself, trying to get those edges together. So your rib tool is gonna come in and help shape that. So just go on the side and drag it, and it will start giving you those corners a lot sharper. So let me get a better angle of that right here. And then go the opposite side of it. Also push down directly on it. I know that messes up the sharpness of the corner, but we actually really want to push those together. And then you can go back and resharpen them by going on the sides as opposed to on top. And so this would help really get the shape that we need. So go on top of the corner, flatten it out a little bit, and then straighten it out afterwards. Corners back. I'm also gonna go through it with a sponge afterwards too, just to really make sure the seam is good and that they're still soft enough that they are joining into each other. So I'm going back and forth a few times, pushing down on the corner, just re-straightening it out, pushing down on the corner, re-straightening it out, until I feel like I'm happy and that seam isn't gonna open anymore. Don't forget to do the same on the bottom. Okay, it's getting less trapezoidal. Still can fix that a little bit later. Doesn't have to be perfect now. So I'm going right on top of the corners. Kind of looks like a bevel a little bit, but I'm not cutting or removing the clay. I'm just forcing it into each other. And then it's okay if it's a little messy right now because we still have to put the top piece on. And then we'll reshape anything that's a little off and clean it up. Okay. So now this one, because it's a closed form, or it's going to become a closed form, we're not going to be able to put those coils into the joints. So that's why I recommend putting it on the top, because when it's on the bottom, there's more weight for it, and during the firing and stuff, there could be more stress in those areas, so it might separate. So you really just have to make sure when you are attaching these, you are attaching them really well and really smearing and blending those cornered edges together so that it doesn't come apart. So I'm softening it a little bit with just some water, only because it's kind of been sitting for quite a while. This one, if I bend it too far, it's going to start snapping. And if you lost some of your score marks as you were handling it, make sure you go back and put them together or put them on. So there's no coils going into these joints here. If you want to brush any excess slip that fell down, you can do that right now before closing it. Once you close it, you're not going to be able to get inside again. So make sure it's as clean as possible. Okay, so now this goes on top. Got to push in that trapezoid a little bit so that this rests on top. Make sure you don't push down too hard on the center again, because if it starts falling down, you're not going to be able to really get it out. So I'm really just making sure it's sitting on top of those side bevels. So pushing down on those corners. and being a little more aggressive with it. And now I can start bringing those corners back. If it is a little dented, like you can kind of see it's curved right here. Don't worry about that too much. Right now, this is like our teapot. If you remember when we made those, we had the two hollow pinch pots put together, and the trapped air helped with all of the forming of the body. So it's the same idea here. We're gonna be using the trapped air to our advantage so that we can really make this as much of a cube as possible, or a flat rectangular prism. You might also just want to label this with a needle as to which side that is. Oh, why did I put B? Not a B. This is the top, not the bottom. So I'm gonna put a T here in the middle. And go with a sponge and start smearing everything, all those scratch marks and things that we have on here. Cleaning it up all the way around. Be careful not to do it too much, because if you use too much water, again, you're gonna soften your slabs to the extent where they're just gonna wanna start warping. Or if you're scrubbing too hard with too much water, all of the sand is gonna come to the surface of your bottle and it's gonna feel really grainy. So just kind of a little aggressive, but don't overdo it. And so since there's this weird sort of bend happening here, I'm gonna go back with my rib and just push a little harder to get rid of it on the corner, avoiding the middle part as much as possible. There's one other way we can also fix that too later if it doesn't get fixed now. So go all the way around, clean it up. Okay. Now before I put the neck of the bottle on, I'm going to try shaping it just a bit more. And to do that, I need to remove the mat just a little bit. So if you're still working on top of a mat, you're gonna need to move that aside. You need sort of more of a flat bottom that's not going to add texture or move with it, because you're going to just basically tap until it becomes the corner, until you achieve the corners of the shape you want. You might even wet your table just a little bit, because if you really want to smoothen it out, you can put it on top and just sort of rub it around, and it will really make your corners sharp again, or just make them straight. So if they were kind of indented a little bit, this is a way you can sort of fix it so you can kind of barely see it. Here's where it's more flat. Here's like a little bit of an indentation because it's not getting touched as I'm rubbing it on the table. There, now we got all of it. Do your top part last, because that's the one we have labeled. So you don't want to lose which one's which. Good. And then also do the front. and the other side. So that looks a lot better. It's not gonna be an exact perfect cube or rectangular prism, but this is pretty decent. And I do know that I keep saying you want sharp corners. Now, if they are too sharp, they are going to make it be an area of concern once it gets fired with glaze on top, because if it's too sharp, you're basically creating a knife since you add glass on top of that area. So you got to be careful. And I guess I should do the top as well before I forget. I just know that this is the top now. Okay. Still there. Good. Okay. So now we're going to put on the neck of the bottle. This is going to go in the center, unless maybe depending on your design, you might have it somewhere a little bit off, or if yours is more horizontal, then it would go on this side, because this would be your top, right? So it would go there. Maybe this has a reason to be on the side for part of your design, whatever that might be. But mine's going right here in the middle, vertically, like that. So put it where it's gonna go. Trace it. And then when you cut your hole, just like when we did the spouts, you're not cutting it entirely all the way on the line. You're actually gonna cut it a little bit smaller because it needs somewhere to rest and sit on. So that's the hole I'm actually going to cut. So let's take my needle or use a knife. Knife would be, actually, let me grab a knife. Here we go. I wasn't sure I had one. And you can cut straight down. It doesn't need to be at an angle. Careful that it doesn't fall in. If you got any pieces that are falling in, you want to get those out. Okay. So now it's going to sit on top. It's not falling inside. Score and slip that on. And before you start putting your actual neck on, you can kind of clean up that edge right there underneath. And if you really wanted to, going back on my word, you could technically have lined these sides with coils. You just got to get your finger in there and really blend them. But honestly, it should be okay as long as you force them together really well when you were using your rib against the corners. But it's up to you, but it should be fine. Score the neck itself. And then add your slip. Put it on top. And then now blend those sides together again. So at this point, I need more of a detail tool to get in there. If you want to shorten the neck as well, it can go a little smaller, like here at this point. It's always better to go a little taller than it is to go too short. But you could have your neck actually be like this short if you want to. Really depends on your design. So now smear them together. And when you smear it, it's going to make that bottom part look a little bit narrower, because you're pushing the clay from the neck into it. and clean it with the brush, but it's sort of taking away from that bottom, so it looks like it's tapered almost. And once you clean that up, it doesn't look that great. So what I'm gonna say you're gonna do next is add another coil around the bottom that goes around here, because then that will help make sure that the seam is together and it will look more finished. So we've blended it. Now we're gonna add a coil around where they connected. You don't wanna go too thick, because then it's gonna go beyond the bottle, or it could, which could make it look funny. Or maybe no, I should make it look all right. Depends on your design. Just gonna turn this more into an even coil as much as I can. Doesn't need to be too big. There we go. Just enough that it goes all the way around. Okay. And then now blend that. Blend it up and blend it down. Try making it look like it was entirely not there, so invisible. Invisible. I like to hold the inside a little bit with my fingers so I'm not making the top cave in. So now by adding that extra clay, it technically made it have a gradual transition here. It's sort of blends from down and then kind of ramps to the top here of the bottle. So it gives it like shoulders almost, but that's up to you if you want to keep it that way or if you want like a straight down edge. So just keep working to refine the result you want. And I can see that this is caving in. I'll show you how to fix that towards the end. And then one of your last steps now that this is on there and you clean it up is, I wouldn't say that this is like a complete bottle. It just needs now a more defined lip in order for it to be finished, more refined. So we're gonna add one more coil around the top here. So that it gives it a little extra detail. So making a coil. Make sure this one is even. This one, it can't be a messy coil because it's not gonna get entirely blended away. We're gonna use it as a detail. And make sure it's just long enough that it goes around the circumference and wet enough so that when you bend it, it doesn't come off. There we go, that's nice. So basically it's gonna end up looking like this once it's all blended in, as opposed to it just being a straight one. Just more on the edge, on the outer side. Not so much like the top. And then blend those together. Kind of like making a funnel, but try not to lose the coil itself. And then do the same on the bottom, underneath, blend it and smoothen. Okay, and then you just keep working on refining and cleaning it up before we let it dry even a bit more before we start doing the actual decoration with the design of the social issue on it. Excuse me. But like I was saying earlier, if you see that it's starting to cave in and you can't get that up anymore, you're going to have to blow into it. So if you blow into it like a balloon, you're going to expand the belly of it and you can sort of put it back together. So I'm gonna blow into it now so you can see. So right now it's sort of just flat a little bit, but maybe a little caved in. So I'm gonna blow. I have to put my mouth on it as if I was like blowing a balloon. And now you can see the belly came up just a little bit. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. And then I'd say let it dry a bit more. It's gotta be not wet at all for us to be putting on our underglazes, but also not bone dry. So it's like close to bone dry, but not all the way. So it shouldn't be turning white yet, because we're still gonna have to possibly carve into it if you're doing the sgraffito method. So it's gotta be bone dry, no, sorry, leather hard, but still soft enough for us to carve. So that would be what to do next. All right, thank you.